The sting of the slap wasn't what hurt the most. It was the look in my mother's eyes, not regret, not shame, but pure entitlement. As I stood in their kitchen, holding my phone with the banking app open, the reality of what my parents had done was still sinking in. $83,000, I said again, my voice shaking. How did you even access my account? Dad leaned against the granite countertop they'd insisted on installing last year, probably with my previous loan that they'd never repaid. Your grandmother would have wanted us to use that money for the family. Grandmother. They always brought her up when they needed to justify taking something from me. She'd passed away 6 months ago, leaving me the money with clear instructions, for your future, Sophia, not for them. Never for them. Don't you dare bring her into this, I warned, my hand still pressed against my burning cheek. She knew exactly what you were like. That's why she left the money to me, not you. Mom's face contorted with the same rage that had preceded the slap. We raised you. Everything you are is because of us. That money belongs to this family. Family? I laughed bitterly. Is that what you call this, stealing from your daughter? Dad stepped forward, his voice taking on that patronizing tone I'd grown to hate. Princess, we needed it for the house renovations. The contractor's already been paid. You wouldn't want us living in a deteriorating home, would you? The contractor. Of course. The same story they used 3 years ago when they borrowed my first car down payment. The mysterious renovations that never seemed to materialize. I looked around their immaculate kitchen at the new appliances, the designer fixtures, all funded by their endless cycle of borrowing from me. Since I'd started my job at the architectural firm 5 years ago, they'd systematically drained every bonus, every raise, every bit of savings I'd managed to accumulate. Show me the contractor's quote, I demanded. Mom's hand twitched, and I instinctively stepped back. How dare you question us, after everything we've sacrificed? Sacrificed? My voice rose. I'm the one who paid for your new roof last year. I'm the one who covered Dad's medical bills. I'm the one, whoa. Enough. Dad slammed his hand on the counter. What's done is done. The money's been spent. End of discussion. But it wasn't the end. Not this time, because what they didn't know was that grandmother hadn't just left me money. She left me something far more valuable. The truth. 2 weeks before she died, she called me to her nursing home. Check the blue box in my closet, she'd whispered. After I'm gone, not before, and don't tell them. I found the box last weekend while helping clear out her things. Inside were property documents, bank statements, and a letter that changed everything I thought I knew about our family home. My phone buzzed. A text from my brother, Marcus. Are you at their house? Don't let them know about the documents yet. I'm on my way. Marcus, the only one who'd escaped their financial manipulation by moving across the country 10 years ago. They'd written him off as the ungrateful son who abandoned his family. Now I understood why he'd left. The money better be back in my account by tomorrow, I said, picking up my purse. Mom laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. Or what? You'll call the police on your own parents? You don't have the spine. Try me. I headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and those renovations you're planning? I wouldn't start anything just yet. Dad's eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? You'll find out tomorrow. Both of you. As I walked to my car, their voices followed me. Mom's shrill accusations, Dad's attempts at manipulation. But for the first time, they couldn't touch me. Because tomorrow, everything would change. I drove straight to my apartment, hands shaking on the steering wheel. In my home office, I opened my laptop and pulled up the files I'd scanned from grandmother's box. Property deeds, transfer documents, and most importantly, the letter explaining everything. The truth was like a puzzle piece clicking into place. 25 years ago, when I was just a baby, my parents had been on the verge of bankruptcy. Grandmother had stepped in, buying the house to save them from foreclosure. But she hadn't just given it to them, as they'd always claimed. The property was in a trust with specific conditions. My parents could live there as long as they maintained certain standards, including financial responsibility and ethical behavior. If they breached those conditions, control would pass to the trust's secondary beneficiary. Me? A knock at my door made me jump. Marcus stood there, looking tired from his flight but determined. Show me everything, he said. For the next few hours, we pored over the documents. Marcus, now a corporate lawyer, confirmed what I'd suspected. This is legally binding, he said. They breached the trust conditions years ago. You could have taken control any time after turning 25. I didn't know, I whispered. He squeezed my shoulder. That's exactly what they wanted. But now, my phone lit up with texts from our parents. Mom, you're breaking this family apart. Dad, your mother can't stop crying. I hope you're happy. Mom, after everything we've done for you. Dad, this isn't how we raised you. Marcus read them and shook his head. Same old tactics. They haven't changed at all. No, I agreed. But I have. We stayed up late preparing everything for tomorrow. Marcus insisted on recording every conversation, documenting every transaction. They'll try to twist this, he warned. They always do. Around midnight, another text came, this time from Dad. We've thought about it. Maybe we can work something out. Come over for breakfast tomorrow. Family meeting. Marcus snorted. Family meeting. Their code for ambush. He was right. Every family meeting had ended the same way, with me giving in, handing over whatever they wanted. But not this time. I texted back. I'll be there at 9 a.m. with documents you need to see. Dad replied immediately. Documents? About the house. There was a long pause before his response. What about the house? You'll see tomorrow. I turned off my phone and tried to sleep, but memories kept flooding back. The first time they borrowed my savings for Dad's business venture that never materialized. The guilt trips when I'd hesitated to hand over my bonus. Don't you want your mother to have nice things? The constant emotional manipulation. Family takes care of family. Grandmother had seen it all. That's why she'd set up the trust. Why she left me the documents. Why she made sure I would finally know the truth. Marcus slept on my couch, his presence a comfort I hadn't realized I'd missed. Tomorrow would change everything, our family, our relationships, our future. But for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid. Because tomorrow, they would learn what grandmother had known all along. Sometimes the best way to help family is to stop enabling their worst instincts. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is finally say no. As I drifted off to sleep, I could almost hear grandmother's voice. Show them who you really are, Sophia. Show them what strength looks like. Tomorrow I would do exactly that. At exactly 9 a.m., Marcus and I pulled into our parents' driveway. Mom was already at the window, her face tight with forced cheerfulness. She'd invited their longtime friends, the Wilsons, for support, her favorite audience when she needed witnesses for her performance as the devoted mother. Remember, Marcus whispered, they'll try to make this a show. Don't let them. We walked in to find a breakfast spread that would have impressed Martha Stewart, Mom's signature deflection tactic. Mrs. Wilson rushed to hug me, cooing, "Oh, sweetie, your mother told us about your little misunderstanding." I stepped back. This isn't a misunderstanding, and this isn't a social call. Dad emerged from his study, all business in his Sunday best. Sit down, princess. Let's talk this out like family. First, I said, placing my briefcase on the table, explain how you accessed my account. The room went quiet. Mrs. Wilson looked confused. Mom's smile faltered. That's not important right now, Dad said, waving his hand dismissively. What's important is... Marcus cut in. What's important is that you committed fraud. Again. Again? Mr. Wilson raised an eyebrow. Mom jumped in, tears ready. Our children are so cruel. After everything we've sacrificed. Robert, Helen, you know how we've struggled since Richard's business setback. You mean the business setback that Sophia paid for? Marcus pulled out a stack of bank statements, or the 3 other setbacks she funded. The Wilsons shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't the show they'd been invited to watch. That's enough. Dad slammed his hand on the table. This is family business. Exactly, I said, opening my briefcase. Let's talk about family business. Specifically, this house. Mom's face went pale. What about the house? I laid out grandmother's documents. The house that isn't actually yours. The house that's been in a trust since 1998. The house that, according to these conditions, now belongs to me. That's impossible, Dad sputtered. Your grandmother gave us this house. No, Marcus said quietly. She saved you from bankruptcy. But she wasn't foolish enough to give you full control. The Wilsons were staring at the documents, their presence suddenly working in our favor, witnesses to the truth instead of Mom's performance. Helen, Robert, perhaps we should go, Mrs. Wilson said, starting to rise. No, I said firmly. Stay, you've been witnesses to their version for years. Now be witnesses to the truth. Mom's tears vanished, replaced by fury. You ungrateful. She raised her hand again. Marcus caught her wrist. Try it, Mom. Give us one more reason to press charges. The silence was deafening. Dad looked at the documents, his face ashen. This can't be legal. It's completely legal, Marcus replied. And given your recent theft, you've violated every condition of the trust. Theft? Mrs. Wilson gasped. $83,000, I said. Stolen from my account yesterday. Would you like to explain how you did that, Mom? Maybe tell the Wilsons about the power of attorney form you forged. Mom collapsed into a chair, her performance finally falling apart. Dad's hands were shaking as he read through the trust documents. You have two choices, I continued. Return my money by the end of today and sign the house over to me willingly. Or I go to the police with evidence of fraud. And we do this the hard way. You would throw your own parents out, Mom whispered. Like you threw Marcus up 10 years ago? Like you've been stealing from me for years? I took a deep breath. I'm not throwing you out. I'm taking back what's legally mine. What grandmother knew I'd eventually need to protect myself from you. The Wilsons excused themselves quietly, their decades-long image of our perfect family shattered. As the door closed behind them, Dad's facade finally cracked. We can't pay it back, he admitted. The money's gone. Gone where? Marcus demanded. Mom looked away. Investment opportunity, guaranteed returns. Another scam. I sighed. How much have you lost? Their silence was answer enough, not just my money, but probably their savings too. The same pattern, repeated endlessly. Sign the papers, I said, placing them on the table. Now, or we walk straight to the police station. And then what? Mom's voice was bitter. You'll throw us onto the street. No, I said quietly. You can stay, as tenants, with a proper lease, proper boundaries, and proper consequences if you break them. But you'll never control this house or me again. They signed. Not because they understood or because they were sorry, but because they had no choice. As Marcus witnessed their signatures, I saw something I'd never seen before in their eyes. Fear. Not of homelessness or poverty, but of losing control, of facing consequences, of finally being seen for who they really were. As we left, Mom called out, You'll regret this. Family is all we have. I turned back one last time. No, Mom. Family is what we choose to be, and I choose to stop this cycle. In the car, Marcus squeezed my hand. You did it, sis. We did it, I corrected. But it's not over, is it? He shook his head. They'll try something else. They always do. He was right. But for the first time in my life, I was ready for whatever came next. The aftermath was exactly as Marcus predicted. Within days, our parents launched a campaign of emotional warfare that would have impressed military strategists. Their tactics ranged from mass family emails detailing their suffering to orchestrated run-ins with relatives at the grocery store. The story they spread was predictably dramatic. Their ungrateful children had conspired to steal their beloved family home, leaving them destitute in their golden years. They conveniently omitted the part about stealing my savings or the trust's legal conditions. A week after the confrontation, Aunt Sarah called me. Your mother's in the hospital, she said accusingly. Her blood pressure's through the roof because of the stress you've caused. Really? I pulled up the house's security camera feed on my laptop. Because I'm looking at her right now, hosting a garden party in the backyard. The silence on the other end was satisfying. You're spying on them? No, I'm monitoring my property, the same property they're using to host parties while claiming to be too distressed to work. That shut down one avenue of attack, but they quickly found others. Dad started showing up at my office, playing the concerned father for my colleagues. Just trying to check on my daughter, he'd say loudly. She's been making some concerning decisions lately. After the third time, my boss, Jennifer, called me into her office. I braced for the worst, but she surprised me. I've known your father for 20 years, she said. Never trusted him. Want to tell me what's really going on? So I did. I showed her the documents, the bank statements, everything. When I finished, she nodded thoughtfully. Take next week off, she said. Paid leave. Get your legal affairs in order. And Sophia, she smiled. Next time he shows up, security will escort him out. But the real storm came from Mom's next move. She called a family meeting, not at the house, but at our local church. Pastor Mike, who had baptized both Marcus and me, acted as mediator. "Your parents are deeply concerned," he began as we sat in his office. "They feel you've been influenced by worldly values, putting money above family." Marcus laughed darkly. Interesting perspective from people who stole their daughter's savings. Mom burst into tears. "We borrowed it. For the family. We've always taken care of this family." "No," I corrected. "I've taken care of this family since I was 22. Every crisis, every emergency, every investment opportunity, it all came from my account. Well, until you drained it completely." Pastor Mike looked uncomfortable. "Perhaps we could discuss a compromise." "The Bible teaches us about forgiveness." "The Bible also teaches about theft and false witness," Marcus interrupted. "Should we discuss those verses?" Dad stood up, his face red. "We're your parents. Everything we did was for you. The new BMW in the driveway was for me," I asked quietly. "The luxury cruise last month was for me. The gambling trips to Vegas were for me." Mom's tears dried instantly. "You've been checking our bank records. I'm your landlord now, and your spending habits affect your ability to pay rent, which, by the way, is 2 weeks late." The meeting ended abruptly after that. As we left the church, Marcus shook his head. "They'll never change, will they?" "No," I agreed. "But we have." That night, I received a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of me taken through my apartment window with a message. "Bad things happen to ungrateful daughters." I called Marcus immediately. "They're escalating." He was quiet for a moment. "Remember Cousin David? The one who works in cybersecurity?" "Yes." Sent him the text, and Sophia, "It's time for phase 2. Phase 2 was something we discussed but hoped to avoid. It meant going nuclear, full legal action, restraining orders, and public exposure of every financial crime they committed over the past decade. "They're forcing our hand," Marcus said. "Better to end this now than let it drag on." He was right. The next morning, I filed a police report about the threatening texts. Then I called a family meeting of my home. Not at the church, not at the house, but at the law office of Marcus's colleague, Patricia Wong. Mom and Dad arrived looking confident. That confidence lasted exactly 3 minutes into Patricia's presentation. "Financial elder abuse," she began, pulling up documents on a screen. "Tax fraud. Identity theft. Wire fraud. Would you like me to continue?" Dad's face went from red to white. "You can't prove any of that." "Actually," Marcus smiled, "we can prove all of it. Grandmother didn't just leave us the house documents. She left us everything. Every record, every transaction, every false statement you filed in her name." Mom stood up so fast her chair fell over. "You're bluffing." Patricia clicked to the next slide. There it was, years of documented fraud, meticulously organized by grandmother before her death. "She knew," I said softly. "She knew everything. That's why she set up the trust. That's why she left us the evidence. She was protecting us, not just from losing the house, but from becoming like you." "Here's what happens next," Marcus took over. "You sign these papers agreeing to specific conditions. You stay in the house as tenants, but with strict oversight of your finances. You agree to counseling. And you never ever contact Sophia directly again. Everything goes through me or Patricia. And if we refuse?" Dad's voice was barely a whisper. Patricia smiled professionally. "Then I submit this evidence to the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. I believe they take a special interest in cases involving elder abuse." They signed. Not because they were sorry, not because they understood, but because finally they had no choice. As they left the office, Mom turned back one last time. "We only wanted what was best for the family." "No," I replied. "You wanted what was best for yourselves. There's a difference." Later that night, as I sat in my apartment, I found an old photo album. There we were, a seemingly perfect family. Mom, Dad, Marcus, and me, all smiling at some long-ago Christmas. The perfect facade they'd worked so hard to maintain. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "You okay?" I looked at the photo again, then at the new lease agreement on my coffee table. "Yeah," I replied. "I think I finally am." Because sometimes the happiest endings don't come from forgiveness or reconciliation. Sometimes they come from finding the strength to say enough is enough, and the wisdom to know that love shouldn't cost you everything you have. 6 months later, the dust had finally settled. My parents, bound by legal agreements and the threat of criminal charges, had become surprisingly model tenants. They paid their rent on time, attended mandatory financial counseling, and most importantly, maintained their distance. The transformation wasn't born of understanding or remorse. It was pure self-preservation. But for now, it was enough. Marcus moved back to the city, taking a position at a local law firm. Someone needs to keep an eye on things, he said, but we both knew it was more than that. After years of forced exile, he was reclaiming his place, not as the ungrateful son, but as someone who had escaped and survived. The most unexpected change came from the community. After years of believing my parents' carefully crafted narrative, people began seeing the truth. Mrs. Wilson, once my mother's closest ally, became an unexpected supporter. "I watched them drain you for years," she admitted over coffee. "I should have said something sooner." The house, once a symbol of their control, became my sanctuary. I renovated the guest house into a home office, started a small garden, something Mom had always claimed was too much work, and slowly erased the markers of their financial extravagance. One morning, while sorting through old boxes in the attic, I found Grandmother's diary. The last entry, dated just weeks before her death, read, "My dearest Sophia and Marcus, when you read this, you'll finally understand why I had to protect you the way I did. Some people never change, but that doesn't mean their children have to repeat their patterns. Break the cycle, build something better. I believe in you both." That evening, sitting in my new garden, I received an unexpected email from Peter, my cousin who'd been estranged from the family for years after refusing to loan my parents money. "Heard what happened," he wrote. "Welcome to the other side. Dinner soon." Life settled into a new rhythm. My parents lived in the main house, our interactions limited to necessary business communications through Marcus or Patricia. They didn't love it, but they'd lost the power to demand more. The $83,000, we never recovered it all, but that wasn't the point anymore. The real victory was breaking free from the cycle of financial and emotional manipulation that had defined our family for generations. Last week, I received a letter from Mom, properly sent through Patricia as required. Inside was a check for $5,000 and a note. A start on what we owe, not asking for forgiveness, just trying to do better. I framed the note but returned the check. Some debts can't be repaid with money, and some trust can never be fully restored. The best we can do is learn from the past and build stronger boundaries for the future. Marcus and I had dinner at my garden last night, watching the sunset over the house that had once been both a prison and a battlefield, but was now simply a home. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "Taking such a hard line with them." I thought about Grandmother's diary, about years of theft and manipulation, about the strength it took to finally say no. "I regret that it had to happen," I said, "but I don't regret standing up for myself. Some people call it harsh, but sometimes harsh is necessary." He nodded, understanding completely. Today, I planted new roses in the garden, something lasting, something mine. As I worked, I saw Mom watching from the upstairs window. She didn't wave or try to come out, and I didn't acknowledge her. Some distances need to be maintained. But I did smile, not for her, but for myself. Because finally, after all these years, I was no longer the ATM, the safety net, or the guilty daughter. I was just Sophia, planting roses in my garden, building a life that was completely, unquestionably my own. And that, more than any amount of money, was worth everything.